Hey gang, remember how I pitched the Devil versus the Snatcher to fiery fan fights last month? Well, I'm back with a second pitch as I alluded to in that video. Nothing more to say beyond that really. Be sure to watch that pitch video for the full context, and without further ado, enjoy my pitch for Infinite versus Doll.
Well, here we are again. It's always such a pleasure. Remember our last call? That was nice.
How long have you been waiting for that one?
About 5 minutes now. It's good to be back. Good to be back for another pitch call. By the way, this one is also being recorded. You okay with that?
I'm okay as long as you're okay with me eating dinner prepared by my wife.
Oh yeah, that's totally fine. They're totally cool with me. All right, let me adjust something real quick. And all right, so as you can see, I have my pitch prepared right here for the screen, and this time, I have a little video prepared that's basically a hype. Did something change? Okay, nothing. I just heard a noise. Basically a hype video for the matchup you're about to see.
Mm-hmm.
Teach you fear, then pain, and then, well, at least the fear and pain will end.
Я не позволю вычислителю использовать меня и поглотить планету.
Infinite versus Doll. Sonic the Hedgehog versus Murder Drones. What'd you think of that?
I see you've figured out that that's the format we're going with for the next times.
Yes, I wanted to do it in the style of your next times. That definitely fit the vibe.
Yeah.
So what exactly connects these two characters? Well, both are quote-unquote reality warpers with red glitchy aesthetics. Both of their faces are masked in some way that leaves only one eye visible. Doll kind of just has an eye patch, but it technically counts, especially with Infinite over here. Both are lone wolves that view friends and allies as superfluous. Both seek revenge on one of the main characters for killing people close to them. And despite their awesome powers, both are shafted in their stories until they're anticlimactically killed off right before the very end. Their final lines are also similar, yet opposing in purpose. Infinite's "I can still fight" towards Sonic, and Doll's "fight back" towards Uzi. And if you want to get jokey with it, it's an edgy teen versus an angsty teen.
Oh my, you got some opinions.
Yes, I do. But as you can see, quite a few connections, and there is something a little deeper here that I would like to label the paths that trauma can take you with. You see, as you probably already know, Infinite became the way he was when he lost his squad due to Shadow's supposedly killing them. It's not really made totally clear, but it's pretty heavily implied that he killed them. And then after he received an ass kicking from Shadow, he basically went insane and became a power-hungry madman and hell-bent on just destroying everything alongside Eggman and his army. All that all that and a traumatic experience really changed Infinite. Doll suffered something semi-similar when she lost her parents to serial designation V up here. However, while she did become cold and distant and quite literally toss aside her friend, her only friend at the time, she still held on to some kind of morality. Like, she's not pure evil, she's not a power-hungry psychopath. She still has some good in her and wants to do the right thing, despite her hatred towards V. And while some prefer to place either of these two against, like, you know, similar pure evil villains and similar tragic heroes that are still caring yet cold, I think it's actually way more fitting, in my personal opinion, to have a contrast of someone who let their trauma, anger, and grief overtake them versus someone who did not lose themselves entirely to their trauma.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of story potential there. Now, obviously, you're very familiar with Sonic the Hedgehog. You've proven that many times before. And while I know you're familiar with Glitch Entertainment, because I've seen your reactions to the Amazing Digital Circus, are you familiar with Murder Drones at all?
I have not seen it, but I have not watched it, but I have seen it everywhere. And people, and I see all the time on Reddit, people are just going mad trying to find good matchups for these characters. It's like the arguments. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there are like five usable characters in Murder Drones, and everyone is at each other's throats trying to decide a favorite for any one of them. Like, no two people have the same most wanted for any character, I guarantee you. But anyways, as far as like popularity and ease of research is concerned, well, Glitch had shows before Murder Drones. They had Meta Runner and a spin-off of SNC4 called Sunset Paradise. I would definitely label Murder Drones as the house that built Glitch. This is pretty much their flagship series and what put them on the map as a famous indie animation studio. And the main content you would have to consider is just the 8-episode runtime. I would recommend that you watch it through at least twice in terms of research, because there are some lore details that can and will fly over your head at first. But 2 watch through should be enough. There is a graphic novel coming out sometime next year, but considering you have like the next couple episodes planned, and there shouldn't be too many changes because it's just an adaptation of this one season, I definitely think that it should be well and truly out before you decide to tackle this kind of matchup. And of course, Sonic the Hedgehog is well known, and Infinite's only really in one game plus a couple comics, so researching him would be pretty easy too. Yeah. And as far as the popularity of the characters themselves, well, a ton of people really hate Infinite for a lot of understandable reasons. There are also a really vocal bunch that really like him and think he deserves better. I mean, you don't get 12 million views off your theme song alone if people don't like you.
Well,
and
that could be said. That could be said for a lot of Sonic characters.
Yeah, true. And like I said, Murder Drones is incredibly popular, and Doll herself, while not the most popular character, is still very much a fan favorite. It's her episode that she mainly debuts in is like the 3rd most watched episode, right behind the series pilot and the finale. And fans really love her so much that a group of them are actually getting together to give her her own fan-made series. It's still in the works, but it is something being worked on. So people do like these characters and the series they come from. So if you were to tackle this matchup, and especially if you got the attention of the Murder Drones fandom, because they are passionate when it comes to fan-made projects, I definitely think you could hit your goal.
I mean, yeah, I can see, like, there's, like, 42 million views on that episode. Just like,
Going into the characters themselves now, not much is really known about Infinite before the events of Sonic Forces. What we do know is that he was the leader of the Jackal Squad, a group of mercenaries that seem to just do whatever they want and steal whatever they can to make a quick buck. Until one day they invaded Eggman's fortress while he was studying the Phantom Ruby. Eventually, Infinite clashed with Eggman and came into contact with the Phantom Ruby, And since it apparently can see inside your heart and see your uttermost desires, since it showed Eggman Land earlier in the comic, Infinite was shown a desolate wasteland all around him. And upon seeing this, Eggman offered him and his squad a deal. Join him and conquer the world, or die right here. Despite his squad's protests, Infinite took the deal and joined up with Eggman to conquer the world because he was bored with the world as it is. This lasted, I don't know, at most a month before Shadow came in and killed his entire squad. The language they use is, "You destroyed my squad," but it's kind of like the same language that like Silver uses in Sonic 06, where, "For the future of the world, I will destroy you," when they clearly mean just kill. Also, I'm and considering you don't see these guys ever again, and in the Japanese dub, Infinite's like, "How could you do this to my men?" I'm pretty sure Shadow did kill them, as dark as it is. So Infinite tried to avenge them, but instead got his face kicked in by Shadow, who then proceeded to disappear while calling him worthless. This combination of events drove Infinite mad, and when he went back into the base, he donned a mask to, quote, give up his own unsightly face. And soon afterwards,
I obtained the power to make all yield to my will. I was reborn!
And he is now basically a god with the Phantom Ruby's power. So, the Phantom Ruby. One of the most poorly explained MacGuffins I have ever seen in a game.
Yeah, that was one thing that yeah, I looked at it myself, and I'm just like, it's like a lot of the information about the Phantom Ruby actually contradicts itself, which is quite frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Like, as you can see right here,
especially the whole the perception thing. It's just like, okay, but clearly that's not how it is. But it affects perception. Does it though?
Yeah, like, it's some weird workaround, like, oh, he's warping reality, but not really, because it's only feeding false information to the brain, yet you're still getting hurt by stuff, he's still bending gravity and stuff like that, and he's still flying around, so clearly he's doing something real, but supposedly it's not real. But it also is at the same time.
Yeah, it's like the Matrix, just like, I thought it wasn't real. Your mind makes it real.
Well, whatever the case, despite all the hoopla they go through to try to explain and not explain this sort of thing, what Infinite can do with this power is basically flight, its energy projectiles like lasers and little orbs, and basically create whatever he wishes. Sometimes it's through firing a cluster of cubes at you during the boss fights, and other times in cutscenes it's just a burst of energy. But whatever the case, if you're caught in either, he can basically bend the world and create whatever he wants with it. Whether it's spike balls and spikes, giant missiles and cannons, and more lasers as if he doesn't have enough already. He can basically do whatever he wants, however he wants it. Including creating copies and clones of previous Sonic characters. This is another thing that is also poorly explained about the Phantom Ruby, because Shadow describes them as having mass and form and no heart and soul, and also being as formidable as their original counterparts. Now, for ignoring the fact that Zavok contradicts this by just acting as Zavok does during his boss fights, when he's supposedly just a copy, while Metal Sonic and Zavok do seem to act as formidable as their original counterparts, Shadow and Chaos literally get one-shot by classic Sonic and the real Shadow. And not to mention the entire army he creates later in the game just getting taken out left and right. So, that to me says one of two things. One, their power is comparable to the originals, but their durability is not. Or, the more clones Infinite creates, the weaker they become. Which you can hope...
like the multiform technique in Dragon Ball.
But these are just theories, these are just random explanations I came up with. It's probably just a case of bad writing with forces, but Whatever the case, he can create these clones to swarm victims, and he can also seemingly duplicate himself, though these illusions more so act as just distractions more than anything. They aren't really seen moving all that much during Infinite's first boss fight, but he can create these things. Now, in terms of other powers, in Mania, which is where the Phantom Ruby first shows up, it's shown to be able to not warp your perception of reality so thoroughly that it makes you see a place it doesn't. And Infinite can also do this in episode Shadow. And it seems like the Phantom Ruby is also able to access other dimensions, like when it dragged classic Sonic to the modern dimension, though Infinite himself has never done this, so it's just something worth bringing up, but also specifying that it is not within Infinite's standard toolkit. But what he can do is bend gravity, whether that's weakening it so you float, or flipping it upside down or the left and right, while also creating these huge constructs that look creepy and also do not much of anything other than destroy a bunch of buildings, I guess. So they're there, and they're creepy. Also, Infinite had a sword at one point before the Phantom Ruby, though I don't know if he gave it up or if he lost it or something, but it is something that he did have, and his skill with it is unknown, but it seems like he's fairly effective with it. It's, again, not much is known, but it is something that you could give him in this case. But an impressive aspect of Infinite is that that the Phantom Ruby can create null space, an infinitely big dimension where nothing but discarded game cubes exists. Now, the infinite dimension part does come from a cut line from the game, but oh wait, are you gonna say something? Sorry.
Nope, I was just saying what you were about to say before you said it.
Mm-hmm. The infinite line thing does come from a cut line from the game, and normally I'm not too fond of using cut content because usually that means it's no longer canon. But in this case, it is still technically in the game. You just spawn in null space past it, so to where the line itself doesn't trigger, and also nothing in the game outright contradicts the line in question. Unlike, say, there was a cut line from Sonic Colors where Eggman said that the Hyper-Gohan energy from the Wisp somehow surpassed the Chaos Emeralds, even though nothing in the game really supports that otherwise, and in the DS version of Colors, Super Sonic takes on the Nega Mother Wisp and defeats her. So that line would probably not be useful. But this line would be.
Yeah.
And also, since he's fighting a robot, well, and you might be worried if the Phantom Ruby works on robots, since, it feeds false information to the brain, and robots don't really have brains, just like CPUs. It was able to work on E123 Omega, so that should take care of that. But yeah. But of course, we cannot forget about his big thing at the very end of the game, and let's be real here, the biggest reason everyone wants him to fight Skull Kid.
Feel the power of the sun!
Probably the most blatant feat ever of cosmic level Sonic. But what's not so funny is how people tend to scale Infinite, because, oh boy, I need to clear up some things. A lot of people like to upscale him from Solaris and the Time Eater based off this promo image saying that he is the most powerful villain Sonic has ever fought yet. What they forget is the Chaos Emeralds are not a thing in this game, and the fact that this is just a promotional image meant to hype up the game. It's probably not meant to be taken 100% seriously. Like, if this was said by directly from the create, like one of the writers or something, like on Bumblecast or something, then maybe it would have some credence. But this is just a random promotional snippet meant to hype up the game and hype up Infinite as this big bad. And so I doubt it would be meant to be taken 100% seriously. And again, no Chaos Emeralds in the game. Another source they'd like to use is Eggman and saying that every defeat, every humiliation at Sonic's hands will be returned 1,000-fold, or in the Japanese version's case, 1,000,000,000,000-fold, with the Phantom Ruby. And people have taken that literally to mean to say, hey, he is trillions of times more powerful than Eggman's strongest weapon, aka the egg wizard with the jeweled scepter. Somehow.
Yeah, so clearly that Eggman is exaggerating.
Yeah, yes, he's very much exaggerating.
It's like to quote 17. It's called hyperbole, big guy.
Yes, it absolutely is. I was gonna say, like, on the one hand, this is Eggman, who wouldn't know how powerful his machines are, but on the other hand, it is also Eggman, who is a grade A narcissist and constantly hypes up his latest and greatest weapons as purely invincible. Not to mention he's in hate-fueled monologue mode during this speech, so that lends more credence to hyperbole. But to give them some credit, in Mania, the Phantom Ruby was powerful enough to damage classic Super Sonic, who kind of sort of scales to his modern self during the Time Meter boss fight. But then you take into account the Phantom Ruby prototypes that Eggman made, and that the Phantom Ruby that Infinite wields is a finalized version of it. And when Eggman finds it in the prequel comics, he can't really control it. So this to me implies that he had to downgrade the Phantom Ruby from where it was in Mania to the point where he could control it, which is significantly weaker. Still powerful, but not a supersonic level threat.
Mm-hmm.
But even with all this aside, Infinite is still incredibly powerful. Like, from the get-go, we're shown that he's able to easily ragdoll and outspeed a modern-day Sonic. And Sonic, as we all know, gets stronger with age. And previously, in terms of speed, in Sonic and the Secret Rings, he was able to cross an infinite space within a finite amount of time, within Night Palace of the game. It is said right here, this is a little snippet from the manual of Secret Rings. And there's even quotes for immeasurable speed thanks to Sonic Generations, where him and Classic Sonic are restoring space-time, which initially was a little questionable given the original Generations, but thanks to the rewrite from Sonic X Shadow Generations, that feat has become a lot more plausible. Mm-hmm. And in terms of power, Sonic could take on Eraser Jin with most of his life force drained from the spell that Eraser put on him. And Eraser was erasing in the worlds of Arabian Nights, each one being its own self-contained, kind of self-contained. It's a little weird, but it's pretty heavily implied that the worlds of Arabian Nights are their own universes. And again, some of them literally contain infinite spaces. Not to mention, Eraser summoned the Ifrit, which was going to burn away the rest of the book, which would include these infinite spaces. So it's not a stretch to say that base Eraser Jin would be universal. So while it's a little weird and a little bizarre, you can get infinite anywhere from low to mid multiversal and infinite to immeasurable speed. Assuming you buy that, of course.
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's like there is evidence for there's a lot of evidence for immeasurable speed Sonic, and it's a lot of it is going to depend on whether or not you can be convinced of it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Infinite is clearly not weak, but he's not clear of weaknesses. See, while his Phantom Ruby projections are very powerful, they can be cancelled out with a Phantom Ruby prototype, like what the Rookie did. Though that is very specific, so in terms of general weaknesses, the Sun in particular drains the Phantom Ruby of a lot of its energy and leaves Infinite much weaker for a time being. He was able to recharge it, but it does leave. But if the Sun ever fails, it would leave him drained of most of his energy. Mm-hmm. And also, the Phantom Ruby is a very obvious source of power for him. So if that gets destroyed, and if a clever opponent were to take advantage of that and break the Phantom Ruby, it would leave Infinite severely depowered and potentially even dead, considering what happened at the end of his third boss fight, where he, according to some magazine, I think, either a magazine or a promotional image, something official, where Infinite and the Phantom Ruby were assimilated by the real Phantom Ruby that Eggman uses in the Death Egg robot.
Uh-huh.
But his biggest weakness, aside from the Forces Riders, but
Come on, jeez Louise, man.
His biggest weakness is himself. With all this power, Infinite, it has become so incredibly confident. I wouldn't say it's to the point where his ego is inflated to the size of a hot air balloon, but I would say that he is so full of hot air that he is the hot air balloon. He is so incredibly arrogant and full of himself throughout most of Forces that it has led him to do some stupid things like allowing Sonic to live after their rematch later in the game, despite the fact that Sonic has shown himself to be much stronger and a real threat. And when things don't go his way, and when people actually put up a fight, he tends to get very angry about that. But we all know his infamous line, "I am not weak."
Yeah.
Yeah, Infinite is definitely kind of bratty. I wouldn't say it's like Sonic.exe levels, but he is definitely very arrogant and very overconfident and tends to rage quit a lot. So this could definitely put him at a disadvantage. Not to mention, and another thing, he's not really much of a strategist. Like in a lot of his boss fights, he tends to either rely on brute force or random bullshit go, rather than using his projections in any competent way. Like, if he really wanted to get rid of the resistance, why doesn't he just wait till they're all out in the open, bend gravity, and float them all into space?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's pretty much.
Well, you know why? Because the heroes would lose and it'd be game over. So.
I guess. But yeah, that covers Infinite. So now let's move on to Doll. This is going to take a bit more time to set up because there's a bit more context that needs to be set up. And hey, you can consider this your introduction to Murder Drone's lore.
Yay!
All right, so in the distant future of the 3000s, humans have created the worker drones, autonomous robots that meant to serve and help them with their day-to-day lives. However, at some point or another, a virus basically was born within one robot named Sin. And this virus was known as the Absolute Solver. Its only goal was to assimilate and destroy everything in the universe. Now, you might think humans would be scared of this and try to put it down, which they were, but they also wanted to study it, to see if they could control it. So they managed to isolate the virus between two worker drones, Nori and Yeva. Cue a whole bunch of human stupidity, and eventually, the Solver is seemingly exorcised from the planet, like they literally use a USB drive in the shape of a crucifix. But not without taking out all humans currently residing on the current planet, that being Copper 9. Earth is in a different place, we'll get to that later. But basically, all humans are wiped out with the Solver leaving in a massive blast, which left the worker drones having somehow survived such an event, and they were free to basically rule over the planet themselves and somehow biologically reproduce. Don't ask, it's never explained. But yeah, Nori and Yeva would also survive this, and they would go on to each have a daughter. Or Nori having Uzi, the main character of the show, and Yeva having Doll. Doll is a normal teenager going to school with her with her best friend and Lizzie. She's just a normal teenager that's just trying to live life normally, and she is also the only drone in the school to speak Russian. And only Russian. Like, in every single dub of the show, she speaks Russian, except the English dub where she speaks English. I mean, the Russian dub where he speaks English. And everyone understands her somehow. Like, none of the other ones speak Russian, but they somehow understand everything Doll's saying. But this normal life would one day be interrupted when the parent company of the worker drones would send in the murder drones. Serial designations N, V, and J to basically massacre the entire colony. A lot of lives were lost in their first installment, including Doll's parents, to serial designation V. Both Yeva and her husband were viciously murdered by V in cold blood, and Doll was hiding as it happened and had to watch. But this event wouldn't go without some kind of reward, because within Doll, this event awakened her solver powers inherited by her mother, and this promoted her from a normal teenager to a telekinetic teenager. So yeah, you may have lost your parents, but you got psychic powers now. That was probably in poor taste, but anyways, as for her powers, it's basically what it says on the tin, picking up and throwing all manner of things, and she's very adept with it. Anything nearby that can be moved, she can move it too, and she can move it in all manner of ways. Like for example, with a normal bullet, she can actually fire it from her fingertips as if it were a gun, which is very useful. And what's more, her telekinesis isn't limited to just whatever nearby that can be moved. She can also use it to crush large metal doors, or disable security cameras, and even target items on other worker drones, like this girl's glasses. And she can also use it on other worker drones in very disgusting ways, like ripping their arms off, crushing them into paste, and blowing them up from the inside out. Yeah, in case the word murder drones wasn't a dead giveaway, this is a very violent show.
Yeah.
But this isn't all that Doll is capable of. Turns out, anything she picks up with her telekinesis can be copied into her database to then be recreated and duplicated as many times as she wants. She mainly does this with knives and cleavers, but she can also do it with stuff like metal poles to send towards her targets, and even use it to enhance objects she's picked up, like this ceiling blade, like the ceiling fan she grabbed.
Wait, she could duplicate anything she touches?
Virtually anything. We mostly see it with the knives, but she can do it with other objects, like these metal poles. Basically, anything she grabs can be copied into this, and we even see it in real time when she fights Uzi in episode 3. Uzi kicks the microphone pole at her, she catches it, she's copying it, and then she throws it back and then throws another one at Uzi.
So, is there a limit to this copy ability?
As far as we know, not really. She can do this pretty much an infinite amount of times, so she's never without a weapon.
So, it's funny you should say that, but interesting choice of words, because hypothetically, what if she were to grab the Phantom Ruby?
Oh dear. Well, we'll get to that.
Because it just immediately I'm thinking like, oh no, that just feels like freaking Shao Kahn absorbing M. Bison being able to weaponize all the souls he's devoured. It's just like, that can't be good.
Uh-huh. Yeah, now that you put it like, I actually didn't think about that, but now that you bring it up, yeah, that would be a huge advantage. But
that is horrifying.
Yes, it is very horrifying. Almost as horrifying as this show can be sometimes. But yeah, in terms of other abilities, Doll can teleport, Slenderman style, and she can also seemingly read and replay memories within certain people. Well, during episode 3, she had V trapped on the stage, and she deliberately replayed her memory of killing Doll's parents. It's a little weird, but it seems like something that she's able to do to maybe disorient her victims. And with all those knives she carries around, she's somewhat skilled with them in a melee sense, though the amount of time she used this is very little. But it is something that she can do with the knife that she creates, and she's also very crafty and intelligent. Like at one point in episode 6, there are these robot raptors that can flash a light at worker drones and cause them to basically be boot looped, which leaves a processing symbol on their heads. And it seemed like Doll had suffered the same fate when they found her, but in actuality she just had a buffering gif on her face and laid a trap. So she's very intelligent. intelligent and crafty in that regard. Now, this is where we get into some feats, and this is where Doll's scaling gets a little weird, but it should be fairly easy to understand once you understand it. Starting with durability, worker drones, despite how often they get ripped apart, are surprisingly tough, as ordinary worker drones like Lizzie and even Doll herself are able to survive direct hits from survive explosions from rockets. Right, so like Lizzie was launched in several feet in the air by a rocket launcher, and she was basically no worse for wear. And Doll suffered a weaker explosion, but was also equally fine. And Nori and Yeva in particular, as well as a few other worker drones, which are significantly below Solver hosts and the murder drones, were able to survive the initial blast that wiped out all of humanity. So. And this is a pretty big blast if you're able to see it from space, so that would be an impressive durability feat. And Doll also seems to have regeneration. In fact, all Solver hosts and the murder drones are able to regenerate from being ripped apart. However, Doll's is much weaker. Like when you see other characters getting constantly ripped to shreds and getting their limbs torn off and their heads blown up. But Doll has never suffered anything like that.
To Robin.
Yeah, Doll has never suffered anything that big. The worst damage she suffered and regenerated from is a shot to the head from V. But she still seems to be able to regenerate from minor wounds. But she is still tough, all things considered. In fact, she's so resilient that during her death. After she was attacked by Sin later in episode 7, she was basically almost completely eviscerated, yet she somehow managed to stumble her way from where she was all the way to Uzi while her guts were spilling out, just to tell Uzi to fight back. So she's determined, very determined, even when basically fatally injured. As far as speed is concerned, Murder Drone's characters are very casually in the subsonic to hypersonic ranges. Doll herself has reacted to bullets and missiles, and several other characters can do that too. And there's even potential relativistic to even light speed reactions, since Uzi and Jay are also able to react to these lasers that seem to be either light beams or something else. I forget the terminology with lasers. But Doll does at least scale to Uzi directly, and this was before Uzi awakened her own Solver powers. So Doll should be at least comparable to relativistic to even light speed, potentially. But there are arguments for much faster speeds, but they are very questionable. Some characters, namely N and J, are able to pilot starships that are able to fly across the cosmos, and some have taken that to say that these characters can move much faster, many times faster than light. The problem with this is that, not for N specifically, not only is it implied that he crashed the ship when they first arrived, but when you do see him actually piloting it, it doesn't seem to be going its fastest speed, and he's struggling to navigate an asteroid field. And with J, while she does seem more competent, her real name is Serial Designation Jobber. Yeah, I needed to highlight this for a second because she is basically the Yamcha of murder drones. This girl gets hurt, kicked around, and ripped apart by the simplest of things. Like in the pilot alone, Uzi threw a well-made pen at Jay, and not only did she allow it to hit her, but it also severely stunned her. And when she pulled it out, she not only saw Uzi jump into the air, but also just stood there as Uzi kicked it back into her and stunned her again. And during the finale, where she does more stuff, she somehow gets restrained by Uzi, even though she was nowhere near Uzi in the time frame that we see her last, and it just allows herself to get decapitated and her head being used as a projectile. And then the last time we see her in the episode, aside from one image in the credits, is when she gets shot in the face with a rocket and then dropped down a pit. But she doesn't do anything after that. Like, she should come back from that, but she doesn't. So yeah, my point with all this is if you're gonna analyze any feats from Jay specifically, unless they're backed up by other characters doing the same thing, take Jay's feats with a grain of salt, because this girl is very pathetic, despite talking all sorts of smack.
Yeah, oh boy, it's always... The jobber is always a very unfortunate designation, because a lot of times when I see people use it, it's just like, oh, come on, this character should be so much cooler, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and with
frickin' Starfire and frickin' Archie Blaze.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
Yeah, Jay has her fair share of fans, but but when you look at her in the actual show, all she does is talk the talk and never walk the walk. Like, she's somewhat competent at times, but by and large, she is basically everything you see here. This is basically what Jay is.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate, but it's the sad fact of the show. But this is where we get into Doll's potential power levels. This is going to be a little unorthodox, but bear with me. This is Sin, as I mentioned earlier, the main original host of the Absolute Solver. And she is basically the top dog of murder drones. She is powerful enough to create miniature black holes that can rip apart entire planets to this kind of yield. In fact, this is actually Earth during the time the show that takes place. So, which is why the show takes place on a completely different planet, because the Solver destroyed it to this magnitude. Now, does Doll scale to does Doll scale to Sin? Not directly. In fact, Sin is the cause for her death in Murder Drones, but that not only was she basically jumped in the dark, but she also survived that encounter with Sin to begin with, narrowly getting away. But I will say, but Doll does scale to Uzi, who, while not being able to basically solo Sin, was able to hold her own very well against Sin in a one-on-one fight, and do even better with N and V on her side when they basically tag team her. And also Uzi herself, who can also create these miniature black holes, was able to throw one so hard that it not only went through the whole planet, but also created this massive crater. So it's a little unorthodox, but through some kind of chain scaling that's relatively solid, you can get Doll up to potentially small to large planetary. Potentially, anyway. So, as far as weaknesses are concerned for Doll, she doesn't have many major weaknesses, but she does have a fair share of her smaller ones. For instance, while she can pick up most manner of items, Solver hosts like Uzi and Sin are immune to her telekinesis. Yes, she cannot grab them or manipulate their bodies in any way, but obviously that's very specific and wouldn't apply to Infinite. So, moving on to other weaknesses. As Murder Drones and Solver hosts all seem to share some sort of vampiric weakness to sunlight, though the sun rarely shines on Murder Drones to begin with, so it's not shown often. But it is mentioned by N that the sun will kill him, and shown here in episode 4 when the sun's rays shine on Uzi's hand. So it's safe to assume that Doll would share this weakness. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another weakness is, while the Solver powers are cool, well, it is still a virus that will corrupt and take over anything it infects. It does take some time, and Doll was able to stall this by gouging out her own eye, which is why she wears the eye patch. But inevitably, anyone infected by the Solver will become its next host, unless you're Uzi, who just willpowers through it somehow. But I'd say the biggest weakness Doll has is that while the regenerative properties of Solver hosts and Murder Drones are very effective, and Doll's is no slouch either, if you target a Murder Drone or Solver host's core and destroy it, or in Sin's case, eating it, you will permanently kill said drone. So, and if the body is damaged beyond repair, the core can survive on its own, but it also leaves them vulnerable to being completely destroyed. So some very interesting weaknesses to think about in a fight. Now then, with this fight, what do I want to see from it? Well, as far as the animation style goes, you guys are about to get your start into 3D, and I think this fight would also work in 3D, though it would probably be a bit hard to get all the effects right. But I definitely think it would be well worth it because this fight can go bonkers with all of Infinite's illusions and all the crazy copy abilities that copying and telekinesis that Doll is capable of. You can basically go nuts with it, with the fight dynamic, and I would definitely like to see Infinite attempt to like change the area into something, into like a zone from Sonic Forces, and I think it'd be especially cool since the Phantom Ruby can see into a person's heart, or in this case, core, and see their innermost desires. I think it'd be really cool is if instead of Infinite just summoning Shadow, Chaos, and Zavok and all them at first, he summons a bunch of different copies of V to try to get the jump on Doll, to basically swarm her and disorient her. And I think it'd be a really cool way to work in the horror that Murder Drones is known for, like to have a really sharp tonal shift where a bunch of V's come in and they're about to basically rip Doll to shreds. And for the climax, before the climax, obviously we would go. I think going to null space would be a cool set piece. And I think at this point while you might have to mental gymnastics it, I think it'd be cool is if at this point Doll has adapted to Infinite's phantoms enough to where she's able to copy his copies that he's firing at her and throw them back at him, which would shock him greatly, to be frank. Mm-hmm. And for the finale, I think I think they would leave null space. It's like, say, a Doll kicks Infinite so hard that part of his mask breaks, and this causes Infinite to go ballistic and basically start bending gravity and creating the constructs, and Doll picking up anything she can get their hands on, as well as like hundreds of knives to try to take out giant constructs. And I think it'd be cool if while gravity is upside down, we could have like a Spider-Verse shot where Infinite is flying towards Doll with his constructs, and Doll like uses some debris to launch herself towards Infinite with a whole bunch of knives at her. I just think that would be really awesome. And the death, if Infinite wins, obviously it would have to involve the sun in some way, and I think it would either be Doll getting launched into the sun, or the sun just crashing down onto the planet, or Infinite flies into the sun with Doll in his hand and forces her to melt within. And if Doll wins, this is gonna sound awkward since it's a Sonic character, but I think a really brutal death would be the way to go, because Murder Drones as a show is very brutal. So I think Doll slowly breaking each one of Infinite's limbs before crushing him, and would be a solid way for a Doll win.
Yeah, and then she takes the Phantom Ruby and just like, oh gosh. Mm-hmm. That would be terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Just rips the Phantom Ruby from...
Just grabs the Phantom Ruby, absorbs it, then just starts duplicating it, just like, oh crap.
Mm-hmm. But as far as music and voice actors are concerned, I've actually commissioned the Werewolf track of this very matchup. The track name is I've chosen Alone Yet Infinite, but there are tons of other names you could think of. Absolute Infinity is a popular one with my audience. Since No Matryoshka is another one, Phantom Absolution, and Infinite Dollhouse, and Ruby Red Revenge are other options. As for the voice actors, for Infinite, I would recommend James Digit, who is a freelance voice actor on SoundCloud and other social media. and he actually voiced Infinite in a Friday Night Funkin' mod, and he did a very good job with Infinite. So I would definitely recommend and looking into him and potentially getting the contact with him for basically reprising that role. Doll is a bit trickier since you would need someone who speaks fluent Russian, but also doesn't only speak Russian, and so there's not a language barrier. Well, luckily for you, her official voice actress, Emma Breezy, is not only fairly easy to contact with her own website and being fairly active on all social medias, but she's also native English and just happens to be fluent in a bunch of different languages. So, I would definitely recommend see if you could get her to reprise her role as Doll. In fact, I would say this would boost your odds of being able to make the episode, since if the Murder Drones fandom finds out you got Doll's official voice actress to reprise her role, I think they would be very much on your side to get this funded. Now, as far as the fight goes, a lot of people label this as kind of a landslide victory in Infinite's favor, but I would actually label it as a stats versus hacks kind of discussion. For Infinite, Infinite's pros and cons, he is significantly stronger and faster, comparatively more versatile, even with Doll's like being able to duplicate anything infinitely. He does tend to have more variety of tools at his disposal, and he does have multiple means of battlefield removal or insta-win. Like if he really wanted to, he could just shove Doll into null space or float her off into space that way, or he could abuse the sun, and if she isn't melted by the sun's rays at first, because solar weakness, he could just throw her in there too. But that being said, said means are unreliable or drain energy. Not only are they not his first option, like he wouldn't just open with null space or or bending gravity right away. But the sun would also drain his energy really quickly, and null space immediately failed the moment he used it. So, make of that what you will. Other negatives include an obvious source of power. I mean, bright glowing jewel on his chest, that's not suspicious at all. And perhaps his most damning weakness, ego and hubris cloud judgment, and fits of rage only make that worse. So I can definitely see him dragging out this fight long enough to potentially give Doll the edge. And as far as equals, I decided to equalize their skill in hand-to-hand and swordplay, since we don't really see much of either from either of them, and what we do see is adequate at best. But as for Doll's advantages and disadvantages, she's much more intelligent and crafty compared to Infinite, can circumvent most illusions thanks to her telekinesis, like she can easily navigate the lasers and the cannons and such. And she actually has multiple means of an instant win. Because you see, since she is much more intelligent, I definitely think that given enough time, she could likely figure out that the Phantom Ruby is giving him that power. And you said she could take it from him and copy it. I think that she could destroy it, since she could target individual parts on a person's body. So if she got within range and caught Infinite off guard, I definitely think that she could destroy the Phantom Ruby, which would at best leave him severely debilitated, or at worst, flat out dead. And also considering her being able to manipulate other person's bodies, while I doubt she would be able to necessarily crush him or rip off his limbs right away due to his durability, I definitely think she could snap his neck or potentially rupture his organs or blow him up from the inside like she's done before. So Doll does have plenty of means to kill Infinite.
Yeah.
And as I said, equally skilled in hand-to-hand swordplay, just based off what we've seen them do, that's how I equalized it. But the negatives might be a little more damning, considering she is significantly slower and weaker, her solar weakness can be exploited, comparatively less versatile, and her regeneration can be easily overwhelmed, since hers is not as busted as Uzi's and the Murder Drones. So yeah, there's definitely stuff worth talking about in this kind of fight. But I guess it doesn't have to end in a death. I mean, after all, the best way to defeat your enemy is to make them your lover.
Did you commission that?
Yes, I did commission that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what? I kind of respect that. I kind of respect the play there.
I guess the last thing I'll say about this matchup, as far as like why I decided to pitch this, is you said with Starfire versus Blaze that they were characters you really loved, but were screwed over in the writing department so hard, like with Starfire being a jobber and Blaze being shafted a whole bunch. I would say that this is my Starfire versus Blaze. Infinite and Dull are characters that I really, really like, yet the writing does not do them justice. I mean, Dull is kind of cool. Both of them are kind of cool at first, but then the story just like, no purpose for you. And in Infinite's case, it's much worse. And Infinite especially has such a hatred surrounding him that I feel like a lot of Versus shows, if they were to tackle him, would let their bias take front and center and portray Infinite as either a bumbling idiot or just purposely make him lose, regardless of any advantages he might have.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just that is part of the problem is like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, the way he has been portrayed in Sonic Forces has been a bit of a loser, and he is trying to have their cake and eat it too with a lot of the things, but and I don't blame Death Battle for this. They were trying to go with an honest portrayal of, like, you know, Infinite getting, you know,
basically the Thwomp of 24.
Oh, the Thwomp of 24. Oh my gosh. It's just
I get what they were going. Definitely get what they were going for, but it also leaves me very concerned with how, like, a solo Infinite episode would turn out. And but since you're constantly saying, like, you gotta put your personal feelings aside when analyzing and portraying characters at their most powerful, I definitely think that you could do both him and Dull justice in a fight.
Yeah, I can try. It's just oh my gosh, just it's like the the slander games going on right now. It's just like the Death Battle. I love them, but they are professional smear merchants.
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times it's just like the glorious memes that they have birthed have been quite a spectacle.
I mean, look at the Bakugo versus Rize slander. Oh boy.
My god. It's like they even got Moro to jump onto the slant. It's just like literally that one clip that's been passed around. It's just like, I'm slandering Bakugo because it's funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's funny, but for those of us who are genuine fans of the characters, we would want to see them like actually be cool for once. Whether or not
it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the end of my presentation. If you don't have any other questions, this was very fun.
Yeah, this was very fun. All right.